try and record it and see if it makes sense. Okay, so the art that we're doing in my sincere effort, but still American, Chinese as a second language person, the art that we're studying is Tai Chi Chin. But it's Tai Chi. It's called Tai Chi. Tai Chi Chuan, right? We know we're not getting exactly right, and it doesn't always serve us to try our very best to make it sound super perfect, because that's not my basic language. And some of the things in the art came to an early translation, which in time may seem to be less perfect than what you now would consider a good translation. But by the time we realized, you know what, we really could have went with a different word here, it's too embedded in the culture of Tai Chi Chuan, or even the public at large. So for example, the public at large still just calls this Tai Chi, which really is the description of the yin yang symbol. It's not this art that we're doing, which is Tai Chi Chuan, but am I really going to fight that and change it? It's, all right, everybody calls it Tai Chi. You know what I mean? I'll call it Tai Chi too. And I'll try my best to say Tai Chi Chuan more often and encourage that, because it is correct. And I'll try my best to not just say Tai Chi Chuan and say a little more accurate Tai Chi Chuan to get the point across. So, so of course this move gets very well known compared to many of the moves, because it's super photogenic. Everybody's got one to compare it to. That's the picture on the flyer at the YMCA where somebody's teaching a 4-week course. It's them doing this in front of the crashing waves or whatever. And so Snake Creeps Down is the name of the move, but I actually think a better translation would be Dragon Creeps Down. Or I'm not worried about the creeps down part, it's dragon rather than snake. And the reason I'm coming over here is because there's a dragon over here. So a dragon in Chinese mythology is a good thing. And like we spoke about with the snake, every culture, every peoples in all of history, in every land, has created a dragon. Right? We don't know an example where these people historically didn't come up with a dragon. Obviously, different name, but when you look at the drawings and you hear, oh, that's a dragon. How do you guys have that in Peru and these people have it in Malaysia? You guys, there was no raft that was going. It's my feeling that people see a need for this thing, and they look around and they don't find it, so they invent it. Can't find it anywhere, and it needs to happen, so they invent it. And I'll talk about why. So a dragon, having been invented everywhere, over and over and over, has always been a good thing. It's a good omen, it's a good being, it's goodness, it does good things. Until we get to Western civilization, where we know, of course, the dragon steals the princess, burns the village, hoards the treasure, must be subdued, must be chased away from the town, and the knight, of course, the hero in the story will then go slay it, or all that kind of stuff. And this is, this early differentiation between Western culture, or civilization maybe, and much of the rest of civilization culture in the world. And there's a shift of looking at that energy as different, which I think can stem from where we see sort of agrarian worlds change into something else, right? Where the earth energy is less celebrated than other energy, the creative energy, the yang energy. So a dragon is this very interesting energy that is a snake's body, a carp's scales, an eagle's, I think, legs, a bear's paws, a hawk's claws or talons, a camel's head, a lion's mane, a goat's horns, whatever they all are, and slight variations, this part of China or whatever. But the idea is that it's all of these different things. And probably, we didn't pick the lion's knee, because it's probably like any other animal's knee, but the mane, that makes it different. You know, the bear's paw is pretty much different than a whole lot of other things. Nobody cares about the bear's nose. Every animal has a cool nose, right? If you want a nose, it's going to be the anteater or a bloodhound, or okay, that's a nose, right? So we might say it's the great parts of all these animals, right? So it's pretty clear how you make a dragon. You go capture each of these animals, chop off those parts, put them together, and you have a dragon. Except, of course, you don't have a dragon. You have a horrible taxidermy experiment that is just laying there on your table. It's pretty horrifying. So actually what's missing about the dragon is the part of us that is, you know, the mane of the lion, as it were, right? And what's different from us than the animal kingdom is our wisdom, right? So this is the body of a snake, the mane of a tiger, the head of a camel, the horn of a goat, and our wisdom, like human wisdom, right? And that now is the animating force in that dragon. In Chinese, the dragon is a symbol of fertility in water, for example. And you'll often see a couple dragons fighting over this pearl of wisdom, you know, this representing this wisdom, and then their interaction is what brings the rains, which is the fertility of the earth, which of course can be extended to our fertility and so forth. So interestingly, a dragon in China, when it's, you know, represented, of course, the whole thing is never visible. Right? So often you'll see them with some clouds or around a mountain. Here, clearly is a whole dragon visible until you look closely and you see that it curls on itself. Now you can presume that it does this one simple curl, and that's how big the dragon is. But also, when it goes out of sight, it could be curling back into who knows where, how many times, or behind some other cloud or whatever. So at first look, you might think, oh, I see the whole dragon, but really you never would. Right? And then you have different number of claws on the dragons. You'll see 3, 4, or 5 claws that, you know, in Chinese culture will represent different, almost stations of life, I guess. You know, like the 5 reserved for the emperor. Like that's the only person that had that stitch on their clothes, that sort of thing. So, to me, this move is much more about dragon going well. Now, a dragon in China, which is maybe a little bit more specific than the dragon in Bhutan and the dragon in Costa Rica and the dragon they came up with and wherever else, can be the size of a mustard seed or the size of a mountain or a cloud, is traditionally how it was explained to me. And that doesn't mean any given dragon might be anywhere within that range. It means that very same dragon can change its size, which is pretty big scale from mountain to mustard seed. Right? And I'll do it more than what we're used to seeing. Like this is me changing my size. I'm getting as small as I can. Right? Now I could get smaller and get into a little fetal ball, right? Like I'm really compact, but that's not functional. So it's the smallest functional that we do. And then what happens after that? I get as big up functionally as I can. Now I could do this, but that's not very functional fighting, right? So to me, the snake creeps down is this sort of human scale, like our standard scene, low and big, and seeing kind of the expression and the flowering of what this being is. So the dragon, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes, the sort of mythological way to chop up things and get a dragon, but I'll continue with this for a moment. So we've seen the dragons, like the dragon dancing or the dragon sort of kites and things like that in China or Chinatown, the New Year's celebration or something. And they're really colorful, right? Kind of cartoonish, like a ridiculous eye and gold eyelashes and weird dots on them and bells and things like this. Now, I look at them and I think, man, for a few millennia of culture, those aren't really starting to look more like dragons. I mean, they look kind of childish to me. Like, I think, you know, they'd start to look more like a dragon by now.
We've got technology.
Right. Let's say that you actually believe there are dragons, right? And you make like this dragon costume and we all get inside it to celebrate something and move it around realistically. Maybe the dragons that are really there mistake that for another dragon. Or mistake you for having mistaken yourself for being a dragon. Like maybe they think you don't really know what you are. So my understanding of it is that there's a purposeful unrealism to the dragons as represented in China. Maybe not in like fine art, right? But in a three-dimensional way, or especially something that the humans, you know, puppeteering, so that in case there's any dragons, it's clear to them that I am not thinking I'm a dragon. I'm simply paying homage and celebrating. And so there's no miscommunication. Okay? So in a similar sense, I am not going to be leaving my place, even though I'm trying to get big. This would be a good chance to jump, right? You jump in martial arts. But maybe the dragon is like, aren't you human? Aren't you guys the walking ones? Like, here you are doing the dragon move and you're jumping. Maybe you misunderstand your place, right? And so to me, that's like this limit on how big I'm going to get. Like, that's enough to pay homage, to give you the idea. I don't need to make it any bigger. Kind of make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, mythologically, a dragon, and this is what we'll see in every culture, is very simply two things. So, if we think about pretty much every animal, like so land animal, you can probably picture however many legs your animal has. Probably y'all picked 4, whatever your animal is. We could have picked 100 on a centipede, or 8 on a spider, or something like that. But you probably picture the legs, and they all vary. Some of them are very strong, or big, or furry, or spotted, or whatever. The snake, 0. 0 legs. So every other animal, despite being a land animal, right? It's not an animal of the sky. It spends an awful lot of time resisting the earth, pushing away from the earth, right? Even though it's an earth animal. And like, if you want commitment, maybe a snake, right? What represents earth more than a snake? No part of it is resisting or moving away from the earth. All of it touches the earth. A snake is the most elegant alimentary canal. Hardly anything extra. Stuff goes in, processed, leaves. That happens with all the other animals, but they also check out my gills, look at my horns, look at this other cool thing, look at my spots, my tail, and all these other things. And the snake's like, dude, I'm just right here. This is all it's about, right? So it's a very earth idea. Take in, transform, let out, stay connected. What stands in contrast to the snake? Bird, right? So bird, no kid is gonna, hey, draw a bird standing. Even though they do stand, it's like you draw it flying, like that's the birdness. It flies, right? And it's up there. So a bird represents heaven, sky, creativity, yang, everything that's not earth, like that side of things. That's what a bird is. And if we look at a bird, which of course is a land animal, right? It's so barely a land animal that almost literally, if you look at an actual bird in real life, not a drawing or whatever, it actually has stick figure legs. Like it's so barely doing the leg thing, the connecting to earth thing. That's like, all right, fine, if I have to be a land animal, just 2 lines, we're good, that's it. Nothing else going on, right? So if we look at a bird, we have this shape, and then just the slightest connection to the earth, right? And of course, even when they're standing on the earth, they symbolize freedom and flight and up and escape and all this kind of stuff, right? They symbolize heaven and heavenly things like peace, right? So we have the yang bird, right, representing yang. We have the snake representing yin, right? What do we have that is both of those things? Right? Nothing. Nothing exists that's both of those things. So everybody has said, you know what if we mashed them together? I looked and looked all over for something that's kind of snake, kind of bird, like the best of both worlds, peace on earth, whatever you want to think of it as. And so the artists create it, or the religious leaders create it, or whoever, right? It has to be created. Something that represents this heaven and earth happily commingling, which is always a good symbol, right? Until Western civilization has a whole other take on it. It was like, you can't have those come together and do a thing because that's bad, right? For a variety of reasons, and that's a scholarly pursuit. It's not my interest. So a dragon is this 2 things together. Now, the really fun story of the incarnation, development, birth of Tai Chuan, is that this old sage du Zhangzhengbang, which is what I was just at this weekend, the Zhangzhengbang Festival actually, he's in a cave meditating, right? Because of course he's some old Chinese dude, so of course he's meditating in a cave, probably vegetarian, better than us, great. So he's doing his thing, super amazing, probably didn't eat, he's amazing, great. And at some point, he sees a crane and a snake fighting. And then the story is, he that's the real wisdom. And he makes this fighting style of Tai Chi Chuan, right? And then people sort of try and reverse engineer that. Like, well, then the crane move must, and that's very snake-like. Like, the whole thing is, I don't see it that way at all. Although it's a fine story, or having a beer, fine story, I've heard a million times. Here's what I see. I see there's this dude meditating, right? And I'm sure it's allegorical, of course, but as far as the allegory goes, I see it as this dude's meditating. He's accomplished, probably fasting and all that kind of great. And at some point, he sees the world for what it really is, which is heaven and earth dancing together. So he describes, instead of in those grand ways, he describes, like we all do in a story, right? If you tell a war story, you ultimately tell a story about Fred and his girlfriend Marianne and what the war does to these 2 people. So like, I can't tell a story of the 6 million people, but eventually like the camera comes in, here's Mark at home worried about his dad at war. Okay, I get that, you're representing all this. So I think that Zhang Feng, so far as it goes, allegorical or not, likely allegorical, he gets, let's say, enlightened or some new way of seeing it, or the results of his meditation, and he says, heaven and earth are dancing together, which he describes as a crane and a snake dancing. I don't think he said fighting. I think we're ready to hear fighting when we hear interacting, especially the 2 things that are poles. Everybody calls them opposites, in fact, right? Yin and yang are opposites, and I argue about that immediately when people begin studying. So I think he's describing heaven and earth dancing. And that's the birth of the form. It doesn't mean two partners doing a jig, but it just, like in pushing it, it's two people working together, even though they're doing different things, and commingling and experiencing each other's energies and feeding each other. It's working, it's cooperative. Even if it's cooperative and we're having this little competition of let me try and get you and you're trying to get me, we're still cooperating, we're not actually fighting. Yeah?
Mhm.
So, picture two animals fighting. Your dog and the neighbor's dog, right? The cat and the whatever, that's the chicken, right? And you see the squabble, right? And then the pause, right? And then, like, incredulously, the cat starts cleaning its hind leg. And the dog is just like sort of looking the other way, halfway sitting. And then, and then you come out with the water thing, you know, just spraying with water or something. And you kind of picture that, like the coming together squabble, and then, like, I'm just eating some grass now. And I'm looking at it like, don't take your eyes off him, you're in a fight. Like, why would you sit right now? Like, it's a fight. Well, this is how we see animals interact. First of all, it's not always a fight to the death. They're challenging something. And so I read it as this fight to the death. Why do you take your eyes off it? But as far as if it's a real fight about my health, not just social position or something, what I know is if you hit me, very soon after, I'm going to try and get my eyes on you. And if I'm kind of recovering and I'm not going to like recover this way. I'm going to be like, I want to see how soon are you coming at me, and are you getting ready to kick or something. I'm not going to just turn around. That seems so not wise to do that, right? The dragon is our wisdom. There's zero change in the intention and the direction and the gaze, despite mustard seed mountain. Even though you could think from a martial arts point, I could see a reason to look where we're going here. I could see a reason to do that. But the lesson here is there's a reason I'm looking here. And so, to answer your question from 20 minutes ago, in the form, the eyes, I have a particular point, and I stay there through this whole expression. Stuff to think about?
Mm-hmm.
A lot to think about.